All right, it's recording.
Fantastic. So we are super sorry about all of our technical difficulties and have not been able to do this live, but we are, want to welcome everyone to Millions Missing 2020 in the UK. We hope that we will get this recording up as soon as possible, and we'll still go through with all of our interviews because we've got an amazing lineup here. Millions Missing aims to celebrate the ME community and raise awareness of what it's like to live with this condition. I myself have had ME for about 7 years now, and much of the time I've been housebound. I've had a great time working with ME Action UK and feel like this is an amazing organisation to be with. We've also got Karima here as co-host.
Hi everyone, I'm Karima. I'm also going to be helping Sean with taking us through all the amazing things we're going to be doing today. I am a volunteer for ME Action Scotland, and I myself have ME. I was diagnosed about 5 years ago. Normally our ME Action events take place in person as well as online across the UK. Obviously that couldn't happen this year. So as you know, the plan was to be live streaming from our homes. Now we're still here from our homes. And I was going to say that that's not surprising at all, because we know that our ME community is amazing at connecting virtually, and this is how lots of us access the outside world. Obviously it hasn't gone as smoothly as planned, but it's still going to be amazing. And Sean, you were going to let us know about talking to our interviewers.
Well, since we're not managing to do this live, we won't be able to take live questions, but thank you everyone so much for joining us. And Karima, back to you to introduce Carol.
Yep, so first up, we're delighted to be joined by Carol Monaghan, who's the MP for Glasgow North West. Carol's been a long-time supporter of the ME community. She's spoken at multiple Millions Missing events in Scotland, as well as speaking out the floors of the PACE trial and leading a House of Commons debate on the treatment of ME patients. And she's going to join us today along with ME Action's UK coordinator, Espe Moreno. Welcome to both of you.
Hello, Carol. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this today, and welcome.
Thanks very much. It's good to see all of you today, and I have to apologise in advance. I've got a wee dog here who's been very impatient, so if we have an interruption, it's wee Jean here on the couch beside me.
That's totally fine. And Carol, we wanted to know, first of all, you've been such a champion for everyone and people with ME for so many years, and we would like to hear more about the ongoing work that you're doing and about the APPG as well. That's possible.
Yeah, thanks, Espe. Well, first of all, I think I've been involved in this for about 3 years now, but I do want to pay tribute to someone who has been involved far longer than that, and that's Countess of Mar, who has been involved for many, many years. And she decided a couple of weeks ago to retire from the House of Lords. So we've really lost a massive supporter there in the Lords with that. But there's been lots of great support across Parliament from lots of MPs from different parties. So things are looking positive. We have re-established the APPG on ME, and following the election in December, there's new MPs, lots of enthusiasm for the APPG, and we've already had a very well attended information meeting. So things are looking positive. We really didn't expect to be doing all of this online, but we just need to work out different ways of going about our business.
All right, thanks so much for that, Carol. And I guess as someone that's been working with Parliament as well, and with you all, how can the community, the ME community, and everyone help with the work of the APPG in terms of research or papers or anything that's needed? I guess that will be something that we will be very keen to do, really.
I think, firstly, if I could say that it's been brilliant to see over the last few years how the ME community has kind of rallied around and has started to really engage with Parliament. That has been extremely helpful for me when I'm trying to organise debates or organise various activities around Parliament. So I think everybody, I always say this, but everybody should congratulate themselves on the success they're having with political engagement. Just remember, we've got a lot of new MPs now, many of whom you won't have spoken to before. So even if you haven't reached out to your MP before, or if you have reached out to the MPs before and haven't had much success, possibly try again with this new parliamentary term. We know that there could be further issues with ME in the aftermath of COVID-19. So we've already been looking at how these issues might impact people. So please do continue to reach out. In terms of the APPG, I was stunned when we've got over 40 members of that APPG. And just to give you an idea, these groups typically have between 5 and 10 members. So already that's a real success story. But we need to build on that, and we need to make sure that the meetings we're having are relevant, that there's kind of action points coming out of them. And that's where the ME community can really get in behind it and say, right, what is the topic we're looking at? What do we want to come out of this? So for example, if we're looking at issues surrounding children with ME, what do we want to come out as a result of that? It's not good enough just to talk about the issues. We need to talk about what actions that we want to see as a result of this. Use the parliamentarians. We're ready, we're here, and there's great enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think that everyone is very well aware of everything that needs to be done, and the more context that you can have with your MP, all the better to change things. And obviously, Carol, COVID-19 it's a huge issue. So what are your thoughts on what you or all of the MPs can do to ensure those who get ME after contracting COVID are ahead and supported in that sense? We will have surely after this Chris Ponting and Nina Muirhead talking about that as well, and then there's a real danger in people developing ME after contracting COVID-19. Well,
firstly, let's hope nobody develops ME as a result of COVID-19, but we know the reality is likely to be different from that. Already we hear about people trying to really push through or get back to where they were, or work hard to recover from COVID. And if we're talking about a viral infection, all of us know that we need to be so careful. It's not a case of just going back to where you were or performing the way you did before. So we need to get those messages out, and we've already had a situation where hospital trusts were recommending graded exercise as part of the rehabilitation from COVID, and the ME community really rallied around that, and we've managed to get some trusts to change their position on that, which is a great success. But there's also been, because of where we are in the pandemic, there's been information about ME and post-viral fatigue in the news. So we need to keep those relevant. We need to make sure that we're reminding people of the possibilities of this. As I said at the start, let's hope nobody develops ME. None of us would wish this upon anybody, but we must be alert to the threat, and it is a real threat here just now. So let's be alert, and anything we can do to tell people, take it easy, take your time, and listen to your body and your recovery. That message has got to get out there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carol. And is there anything that you'd like to say at this point?
I think the last thing is we're all finding different ways of operating. It's of course, I know that the ME community are really proficient at operating online. The rest of us are playing catch up here. So maybe the ME community could help the rest of us in terms of how we operate and how we deal with the practicalities of living normal life online, because it's a strange time for many of us at the moment. So thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for all of the activists that are involved in trying to make a difference for those with ME. I do believe things are improving. I do believe people are starting to listen, and I do believe there are people in positions of power and authority that are starting to sit up and take notice. So all of these things we must be positive about. So congratulations to all involved.
Thank you so much, Carol, and thank you so much for the time that you've given us today.
Thank you both so much, and really, really appreciate you joining us on your daughter's birthday. So we're sending a massive happy birthday to her. I hope you all enjoyed the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Karima, could you tell us a little bit about the film whilst I get that set up, please?
Yes, of course. So next up, we're showing a short film, which you may have seen has been released on our social media channels. So it was created by filmmaker Ross Scott, directed by Sean, who's getting it up now, with a coordinated group effort from ME Action UK and ME Action Scotland. It draws attention to the increased risk of post-COVID patients. Sorry, bear with me. The increased risk, of post-COVID patients potentially developing fatigue conditions and ME, and the fact that the current treatment, as Carol was talking about, there is graded exercise therapy, and the harm that this has already caused our community that we know of.
Thank you, Karima. So we're ready to go, and I'll press play on that now.
I got a virus.
I didn't die.
But I never recovered.
10 years later.
20 years later.
I still can't live my life.
I'm still housebound.
And bedbound.
I can't work.
I have missed my daughter's childhood.
I'm now diagnosed with the chronic illness.
Myalgic encephalomyelitis.
ME.
My specialist told me that the national recommendation is graded exercise therapy.
This made me worse.
Much worse.
I went from being able to walk down the street
to being bedbound for a year.
I wish I'd allowed my body the time to rest.
I wish the recommended therapy hadn't made me and thousands of others worse.
We need change now.
It is possible that COVID-19 unfortunately will lead to an increase in the number of people with ME. We think this because there has been a variety of studies, one of which in Australia found that about 10% of people who had had one of 3 or so viral infections after 6 months had fatigue syndromes.
I wish I could go and watch live football again.
I want to climb mountains again.
I want to sing and dance again.
I want to be the best parent I can be.
I want to be independent again.
I want to be free from pain.
I want to be able to do something for longer than 40 minutes.
I want to hold my head upright. At least most of the day.
I want to go.
I want to leave my bed. If any of these are going to happen.
We need treatment that helps, not harms.
We need biomedical research to better understand this disease.
We don't want anyone to go through what we're going through.
We got viruses from which we didn't recover.
We don't want that to happen to you.
Amazing. So I think we can all agree it's a really powerful film. I've watched it many times now and still feel emotional every time. You can also watch a longer version of it on ME Action Network's YouTube channel, which goes into a bit more detail and is really worth a watch. Huge thanks to everyone who worked on the video, all the people who used precious energy to submit videos. Special thanks to Sean and Ross, who directed the video and made it all happen. Next up, we're going to hear from Ben Suborga, the Global Community and Campaigns Director for ME Action, along with Espe, who you met earlier. Take it away, guys.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for all that you have done. Millions Missing is an amazing day. It's amazing to see everyone here together. And I am just reminded of the power of all of us coming together, all the different faces. And I just want to encourage you all, as you're watching this recording later, like Millions Missing may be one day, but as we all know, like our disease is continues on, and we live with this disease. We continue to fight on. So I hope that ME Action's message is that we do this by fighting together. by working together. And that's what all the volunteers who you're going to see who put together this amazing program are doing. And we invite you all to come and to join us, because it's only by working together that we're going to see change for ME. And that's what we need, is our voices lifted together. So thank you all for being the power behind ME Action. Thank you to Espe, our UK coordinator, for working with this amazing volunteer team, and for all of you. It's a delight and a pleasure to work with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I don't really have much to say apart from all Ben said. It's just echoing his words, and really, I'm just extremely proud to work supporting people with ME and working with all of you guys, all our volunteers and advocates, and all the staff. And so I will just please encourage you to join the movement in any big or small way that you can. You can volunteer, you can donate, you can contact your MP or your MSP. You can do so many things that will support people with ME. So thank you so much.
Thank you both so much for that, and for that message from our fabulous staff members. Next up, we're going to speak to Laura, who was in the short film that we just showed you about her experience of living with ME. Laura's talking to one of our ME Action UK volunteers, Claire Tripp from Southampton, who cares for her teenage daughter with ME. So can we make sure that they're unmuted, and over to them. Hi, Laura.
Hi. Hi, Laura. Thank you for joining us today. It's really important that we have people like you with ME talking about and sharing their experiences today for Millions Missing. So thank you so much for being part of that. Can you start by telling us about when and how you developed ME?
When I was 15, in June 2014, I suffered from an infection. The doctors thought it was glandular fever, but the blood test came back negative. They just said it would be a similar infection to glandular fever. But the last 2 weeks of year 10 in school, I didn't leave the house. I was very, very sick, and then I never recovered. When I went to school, I would do a couple of days at school, and then I wouldn't be able to finish the rest of the week. I didn't manage a full week at school. And then in December 2014, I was diagnosed with ME. I've now had this for 6 years, and I'm 21.
No, it's such a similar story to my daughters and so many other children with ME. But of course, now lots more people are experiencing something similar regarding isolation and being stuck at home for a prolonged time. How has this coronavirus lockdown compared to how you felt when you were first ill?
So many people are struggling at the moment with not being out loud outside the house. But when I've been sick with my ME, I've not been able to move from my bed. I've not been able to watch television because of the light and the sound, or not being able to concentrate on it. Even though people are confined to their houses, they still have their health. They still can do everything but from home. But it does offer a very small taste of how isolating it can be when you're shut away from the world and the world just carries on outside.
And I think at least with being in lockdown, you know that there's going to be eventually an end, and they can rejoin the world. But of course, ME sufferers don't get that. They don't have the luxury of knowing. You originally responded to ME Action's request to send in a video clip for our short film, and thanks so much for that. Why did you want to get involved with the film? What motivated you to join in?
Awareness is really important to me, because I think one of the hardest things about having ME is the disbelief and the unknowing surrounded by it, and having to explain it to every single person that you meet, because they don't know and they don't understand. If more people were aware, if more people understood the disease and offered more support, then there would be more hope for funding into research and more support for people that are suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. And this transfers into the medical profession too, doesn't it? So on that note, based on your experience, what's the main piece of advice you'd like to give anyone who might have COVID-19 and then might go on to develop ME?
Just listen to your body. It is the one thing that knows best above everything else. What anyone else is saying, you need to listen to your own body. Rest when you need to rest. There's lots of misinformation around ME, and you don't want to get caught up in it. You just need to listen to you and your body. It's about being strong enough to not being strong enough to push your body, but to be strong enough to recognize what it needs, to be strong enough to say, no, I can't do that, or no, I can't go and do what everyone else is doing, and being strong enough to know that you need to rest. Even if you have to stay home when you desperately want to be doing what everyone else is doing, you have to be strong enough to take a step back and say, no, I need to rest.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. What a great note to end on, Laura. As you know, we can't do this at ME Action without people like you getting involved and sharing their stories. We realise, obviously, this isn't something that everybody can do, so thank you so much for getting in contact with us, sending us your film clip, and thank you for joining us today. Cheers. Back to you, Sian and Karima.
Totally echo that. Thank you, Claire. We're so grateful to you, Laura, for coming on today, for sharing your story as a film and talking as well. You know, as Claire said, it's such an important part of our work to be able to share what's really happening to people, and we need their bravery and courage to do that, and we appreciate how hard it can be, and we really, really appreciate it. So now we're going to hear from David Green, the director of the Florence Nightingale Museum. He's speaking with ME Action volunteer and organiser of Millions Missing London for the last few years, Denise. Now, I'm sure that David and Denise are going to tell you about the connection between Florence, today's date, and disability advocacy. So I'll let them explain to you why Florence is such an important part of our story. So welcome to both of you, David and Denise.
Hello there. Thanks for inviting me. It's good to be here.
Just making sure Denise is unmuted. Go for it, Denise.
Hello, David. Thank you for joining us today on Florence Nightingale's birthday for Millions Missing. Could you tell us a little bit more about Florence and her life?
Certainly. I think we all know Nightingale as a nurse. She's something to do with Crimean War, but so many people don't know the full story, that being that she spent 17 years arguing with her family to request to become a nurse, after which it was a short period of nursing, and then when she was in the Crimean War, she caught what we now think was brucellosis, which left her with essentially chronic viral fatigue afterwards, and this affected her for the rest of her life, quite literally. Sometimes she was bedbound, other times she would certainly struggle to leave the house. But despite that, she battled on. We think she wrote about 14,000 campaigning letters during her life and advised on the setting up of a number of hospitals, a nursing school, and so she certainly was a high achiever. But there's so much of that people don't know, and it's fantastic to celebrate what she achieved despite the brucellosis.
And I understand she was quite a brilliant statistician as well.
That's right, yes. There's almost no end to Nightingale's talents once you start looking at her, and she really did. When she came back from the Crimea, she figured that it was important that they really looked at what happened there, because that was the only way to make things better. So she painstakingly went through all the data regarding the different deaths that had occurred, and of course this was in an era before calculators, and it was all done by hand, and she did all this, and out of that, she started to create all sort of visuals which could be used to portray the information very quickly, recognising that if she was going to get parliamentarians on her side and make changes, they were never going to read a really thick booklet or anything like that. And so with that, we had the birth of evidence-based nursing, and the idea being that big data could be used to actually solve the problems that the healthcare sector had. I think we hear something quite similar today quite often, don't we? So really pioneering work from Flo there, and that's partly why we're celebrating today her 200th birthday.
And today it's International Nurses Day as well, which is an especially important day.
It is. Nightingale's regarded as the founder of the profession, the mother of the profession. And that term mother, I think, is because she is so widely admired and loved. Literally, it is global. And consequently, every year on her birthday, it is International Nurses Day. And nurses stop, think of Florence, say thank you to her for founding their profession, and also it's a great opportunity for us non-nurses to thank them. This year's particularly special because in her honour, the World Health Organization also made it International Year of the Nurse and Midwife as well. So almost non-stop celebrations today, I think we could say.
And it's a special birthday because it's 200 years since her birth. It's her bicentennial. Can you tell me what the museum is doing to mark the occasion?
Certainly. Tonight we will be doing a projection onto both St Thomas's and also onto Guy's, but you're going to be one of the first people I'm able to say this to because we've had to keep it top secret. We're also going to be projecting onto Parliament as well tonight from across the water here where we're based at St Thomas's. There you go, I've kept that exclusive for you almost. Now, ultimately, this is quite an ambitious project. Some of you will know that we opened an exhibition back in March. Sadly, that's closed. There's an online version of that exhibition on our website. And with that, we've got an image that we've used throughout of Florence Nightingale of a half figure, but also a modern day nurse, because we felt that really did show how ultimately that Nightingale spirit, those Nightingale skills and professionalism travel through. So tonight, in a very exclusive opportunity, I have been told by the Speaker of the House this will never be allowed again, and I'm amazed I've pulled it off. We will be beaming that onto the Houses of Parliament to say thank you to our nurses, thank you to our midwives and carers too, of course, in this climate, and also celebrating that it's Nightingale's birthday. We've got no cake, but we have got plenty of projectors.
Well, that is an amazing piece of news, and I'm sure we'll all be looking out for it tonight. I mean, it's well done for
We're hoping to make the 10 o'clock news, so look out for us there.
It's a fitting tribute to Florence Nightingale. And you've also chosen 200 objects, haven't you, that represent her life, her work to the present day. Like, I understand the film Unrest is one of them, and I wonder if you'd explain why you chose that.
Certainly. I think it's because it's really important to remember what Nightingale did achieve from a period in her life where she was sick. She certainly struggled physically and mentally, but she continued to battle through. Undoubtedly, she had to really cope with quite a lot of people saying that she was malingering, that she wasn't really doing what she could. She really did struggle post the war with actually not wanting to be a celebrity. She was probably the most popular woman in the empire, also the most famous. Certainly only Queen Victoria would rival her. And she just didn't want that. All she ever wanted to do was to be a nurse. She got catapulted to fame by the Crimean War. And I think that also contributed to her conditions that she suffered. So we thought it would be good to include a story showing that somebody can achieve, and that actually all of us can face challenges in our lives. They can strike at any time, not something that you've done yourself to encourage it, and so on. And we just wanted to celebrate that and show some real solidarity with anyone who's facing those challenges. And that's the same reason too that I was insistent that when we created the physical exhibition on site, we'd also create the online version, recognising that Nightingale herself would have struggled to get here, and in fairness, she only lived across the other side of London. Certainly coming to our central London venue is challenging. So therefore we've done that. We've also created a pop-up exhibition that's travelling around hospitals too. So we've really tried to engage everybody. We do hope people are able to do that. We've now got an extra event too, in the fact that we've got our projections tonight, and of course we're also launching our fundraising plans to actually save the museum, because with us being closed we've got a lot of challenges there. So The year's not quite what we expected, but then again, life isn't, is it? So when that happens, you've just got to face your challenges and move on as best you can.
Thank you very much, David, and telling us all about Florence Nightingale, her campaigning work, and the fantastic news that you are the tribute on the side of Parliament tonight, which I'm sure we'll all look forward to. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah,
Absolute
amazing
pleasure.
news, David. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really, really good to hear about that link between Florence and ME Awareness Day. Next up, we've got Stuart Murdoch. He's the lead singer of the hugely popular Scottish indie band Belle and Sebastian, and has been advocating for ME for some time, spoken and performed at millions of messing events in Glasgow and Edinburgh, and he's also the ambassador for the US-based research organisation, the Open Medicine Foundation, and lives with ME himself, so he's prepared something to say to us today. So thank you so much, Stuart, for joining us, and please take it away.
Hi guys, can you hear me okay? Good stuff. Well, thank you for having me. Just thinking, this is you're right about ME people being used to this kind of online stuff and conferencing stuff, and actually I hope maybe this is actually better for a lot of people than the regular event that's been happening. I know it's been a beautiful thing over the years, but this is kind of cozy, and I hope everybody's doing as well as they possibly can be in the circumstances of what's going on just now. But I know ME people can be really resilient. I actually wanted to chat about a subject I've been doing since my own meditation center has been shut down and I haven't been able to go there. I've been doing my own little classes online, and so I thought I'd maybe talk about meditation, and also just the idea of keeping a positive mind through all your travails. I know that sometimes, on occasion, people have asked, during my ME career, my 30-year up and down ME career, people from time to time have said, try and keep a positive mind. And it's whenever somebody says that to you, it depends on the context. Sometimes it can be it can be genuine, and you can take it the way it's intended, and you can feel good about it. And if it's somebody you know, but sometimes you can take that stuff the wrong way. It's sometimes it can feel a little bit like off the cuff or flippant. Keep a positive mind. Well, that would be easy if I could actually feel better. The thing is, of course, it is so important to keep a positive mind, but the trouble is, so often when people or physicians are saying that kind of thing, that we have you're still almost trying to prove, you have this feeling you're trying to prove that you're physically ill, and so the mental aspect almost gets brushed to one side, because we're so almost like paranoid to having to prove what's wrong with us. And of course, this is a shame, because the mental aspects of any illness, especially any chronic illness, is so important. It is so important to keep a positive mind, if you can. So I hope you feel that's okay coming from me, because I've been through all the kind of ups and downs. But when you find yourself in a position where maybe things, when your ME's maybe bottomed out, or you've got to a slightly better position and your world is maybe stopped crashing around you, then you can start thinking about looking for a peaceful mind, looking for a happy mind. Well, we definitely, I think in every circumstance, the physician and yourself and your family, sometimes the stresses and strains of the world before you got sick, sometimes the stresses and strains had a part to play in the way that we got sick, in the way that we reacted to that virus. Why us? Why not the next person? Maybe we were in a stressful situation. So obviously you need to listen to your body, but we need to look at the circumstances, the things that were happening to us when we got sick as well. And it's obviously a lot of us, our lives will never be the same again. We completely change as people, and that's not altogether a bad thing, because we do need to accept and adjust what's going on. And then the next big thing when sort of the mental health comes along and plays a big part, I think, is when you've had ME for a long while, getting a bit longer. I did a couple of years being very poorly, but I was still quite relaxed with it. I mean, things were going okay, but then suddenly after a couple of years, things went mentally wrong. I'd obviously just had enough. There's something in my subconscious broke, and my quality of life was such that I just became very depressed and anxious overnight. I had what you might call the old-fashioned term, it's a nervous breakdown. But it's not surprising. I went through a few psychiatrists, and they didn't really understand the ME, and it was useless. I felt I was fighting a battle with them. They were trying to address things that happened to me in my childhood, which was very happy, and they were really taking the wrong end of the stick. Eventually, I paid quite a lot of money to have one session with a very good psychiatrist. I'm not saying that all for NHS psychiatrists are not, but I was recommended this woman, and the first thing she said after I told her my story was, no wonder your mental health is the way it is, because I mean, what you've gone through is, anybody would be depressed, anybody would be anxious, and it was worth the money just to hear that. It was the best thing that anybody in that side of things, that the kind of mental health side of things, had ever said to me. I mean, she actually swore. I'm not going to repeat what she said, but she said, no wonder you're mentally, you've been affected like that. So that acknowledgement was a good place to start from. We need to, looking at this aspect, it's let's just assume it's hard on anybody mentally, never mind the physical. So it's important to kind of break the cycle. If you keep getting anxious and depressed, it's difficult. It's not going to help your physical recovery, and we need to sort of help people to break the cycle. And I find that one thing that can really help is meditation, and I'm sure you guys, quite a lot of you have had ME for a while. Probably some of you have explored those kind of mindfulness things and doing that kind of stuff online, which is excellent. I mean, basically, if you can, the idea of meditation is to try and find a peaceful mind, and a peaceful mind becomes a happy mind. It simply does. And if you can find a happy mind, no matter what your circumstances are, then that becomes a bedrock upon which you can base your recovery. Of course, we're all waiting for cures to come along, but in the meantime, let's try to, we have to kind of accept what's happening to us and make the make the most of it, and give ourselves this platform for physical recovery. So I guess that's all I wanted to say at the minute, and I'm looking forward to. I'm enjoying everything that everybody else is saying. So
that's brilliant, Stuart. Thank you
okay.
so much
You're
for
very
joining
welcome.
us, for your continued support. It's very, very welcome to take a moment to remember that centering on positivity where we can. Of course, like you say, it can be very difficult, so it's always useful to take those moments. Thank you. I think that next up we are going to welcome Catherine Hale. She's a lead researcher and project manager of the Chronic Illness Inclusion Project. She's worked as a policy researcher with Mind, Action for ME, the Spartacus Network and Inclusion London, and Catherine has lived with ME herself since 1988. So Claire's coming back to interview her, and thanks very much. Over to you guys.
Welcome, Catherine. Hi, thank you so much for joining us today for Millions Missing. It's lovely to have you here. Can we start with you telling us what you do and what's your experience with ME?
Yeah, so thank you, Karima. As Karima said, I lead the Chronic Illness Inclusion Project, which has been a 3-year action research project. I also co-chair a forum of disability activists where I live in Southeast London. ME I've had, as Karima said, for over 30 years now. I used to be very severe in my 20s, but now I'm just moderately affected, you know, compared to being very severe. I feel very, very lucky. Yeah.
So how did you become involved in activism and other research projects?
Yeah, so I didn't become an ME activist. I became an activist in response to the welfare reforms that happened in the UK around 2012, because they had such a devastating impact on my life, you know, the transition to ESA and everything, that I just felt I had to do something about it. And since I couldn't take to the streets and protest or occupy buildings, I found that the best way for me to be an activist was through doing research. So the research I've done has always tried to expose the gap between the rhetoric of what governments say their policies are supposed to do and the actual impact on our lives. And it was at that time that I joined a network of other disability activists who are also doing the same kind of research called the Spartacus Network. And I discovered that we all, although I was probably the only one with ME, other people in this network had things like Crohn's disease, EDS, and lupus. And we all had this common experience of kind of having very limited energy that you had to really budget and ration carefully to get through the day. So I became really interested in what we shared in common. And we had our common language, obviously, was that we were spoonies, you know, which is probably a term that most people have heard of. But working in this kind of policy environment, I realized that people outside of the Spoonie community have no idea what our lives are like, and that we share such common ground, and also that there was nobody to kind of lobby or advocate for us in the kind of policy environment. So whereas if we'd had, you know, mental health issues or learning disabilities or autism, there would be big national charities lobbying on our behalf, but there's nobody kind of lobbying for Spoonies, basically. So that's what led on to my current work, was to explore this common experience that we shared.
So you said earlier that you lead the CIIP, which stands for the Chronic Illness Inclusion Project. Can you tell us what this is?
Yeah, so out of that experience, I was very lucky to get a grant from a consortium of disability charities, because they realised that the chronic illness community is kind of disconnected from the disability rights movement in the UK. And the project that I proposed to them was about addressing that kind of disconnect with the disability rights movement. So what we've been doing for 3 years, is bringing together the chronic illness community online and talking about what what experiences we share in common, regardless of all our different diagnoses. And so the experience of illness, which is, you know, of having limited energy and pain, but also the structural or kind of injustices that we face in common as well, which we discovered was very much around the issue of disbelief and disability denial, that's a common experience also across different diagnoses. So the project has been an attempt to bring all that knowledge and experience into a format that, and a language that we can communicate to the outside, you know, to policymakers, to people who design assessments, to MPs, you know, so that we have a language, because nobody understands what a spoonie is outside of our networks. But the work we've done has hopefully translated our experience into a form that the people who make decisions about our lives can take on board and understand. And also, sorry, to kind of sow the seeds of an advocacy movement for people with energy limiting chronic illness that can hopefully build on the work that we've done.
And it's about validating these experiences as well, isn't it? Which is really important. Can you tell us more about the current projects you're working on, or any recent ones, for example, any research?
Yeah, so the big 2-year research project we did, we launched our report the week before last, so that was exciting. And it was covered on You and Yours last week, which was really nice, on Radio 4. The next stage is our manifesto for inclusion. So we have almost ready to launch, really looking forward to releasing that with you, a manifesto for equality and inclusion for people with energy limiting chronic illness. We did a response on the impact of COVID-19 on people with chronic illness for the Women and Equalities Commission, which we submitted at the end of last month. And the current project we're doing is in collaboration with Leeds University. We're looking at specifically the issues of the benefit system and employment support for people with energy limiting chronic illness. How can we make that system work better so that there are more employment opportunities and better income security for people with chronic illness?
So what does this mean for people with ME?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I suppose that the main thing to come out of the work was that the kind of unifying language that we found was the term energy impairment. So what we want to do now is explore among different communities, people with ME, how we can use that framework to unite more strongly together with other people with chronic illness, which doesn't mean that we stop fighting for research and treatment for ME specifically. It means that we find that we can be stronger in advocating for our support needs and for a system that better supports us to live as well as possible if we kind of find common cause with people with other chronic illnesses. Yeah.
Okay, great. What do you think, talking about COVID-19, what do you think are the most important challenges for people with ME and all people with disabilities and chronic illnesses? Are we overcoming some of these? What can we do to help and help each other?
Yeah, I think that the COVID crisis has really revealed how much we have in common with other disabled people in terms of the difficulties and the challenges we faced. So the challenge of getting hold of food and groceries during the crisis is something that's affected all disabled people. And it's really showed how government provision was really inadequate. So although they had a shielding list of about 1.5 million people, there were 12 million disabled people in the UK, and people with visual impairment, autism, and all sorts of other conditions who have relied on supermarket deliveries, kind of online shopping, have been massively disadvantaged and have had real struggle to get hold of food, as have lots of people with ME. The other challenge that COVID has exposed is how the NHS triage system for deciding who would get treatment for COVID, who would get access to ventilators, that has really worried a lot of disabled people as well as people with ME, because the criteria for who gets that priority treatment seems to be something about how much our lives are valued by society. You know, like if you don't take regular exercise, then you don't deserve treatment that could save your life. And this is applied to something that other disabled people have been really, really worried about as well. So there's something about how society, you know, doesn't value our lives equally to non-disabled people, that really shows how we actually really do need to unite with the disabled people's movement and find our voice within that space, and you know, fight together for our human rights.
And now is the right time, isn't it, more than ever, for people with ME and chronic illnesses to fight for that equality and human rights. The world post-COVID-19, we know is going to be very different for everybody. So how can all our communities come together to prepare for that?
Yes, I think, as I was saying, joining up with the wider disabled people's movement is really, really important. Finding our own voice within that space and contributing to those to that movement. Particular, as other people have said, what the lockdown has shown is how easy it is to include people who are housebound, right? Because the whole world has suddenly become housebound and had a taste of our experience and all the things we were asking for or dreaming of before, like, you know, being able to work from home, socialize from home, have access to cultural facilities from home, all those things that we've been wanting for suddenly, and we were told, oh no, that's too difficult, we can't possibly do that. Suddenly the whole world has adapted and it's completely possible to do these things. So I think that what we need to do is start saying, not like it would be nice if we could have these things, but actually these are our rights under the Equality Act. These are very reasonable adjustments. And so for people who are housebound because of energy impairment, we really need to be using our rights and using the Equality Act to demand these adjustments so that people who are housebound, people with severe ME, can be included in society as much as possible.
Thank you both so much for that. That's actually all we've got time for today. If you want to say another last word, feel free. But if not,
that's it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us, Catherine, and Claire for taking that interview. That was really interesting, and we hope to be able to continue collaborating with you. Next up, we've actually got Vicky Foxcroft, MP for Lewisham, Deptford, and Shadow Minister for Disabled People. Vicky is going to speak to us briefly, and then Denise is coming back to ask some questions. So welcome, Vicky.
Well, thank you for inviting us, and thank you to Catherine for you know, chasing me to make sure that I managed to get it in the diary. It's really you know, interesting to listen to all of you speak, and quite emotional in terms of you all sharing in terms of your experiences. If I just kind of touch on a little bit about me. So I've not actually had the role of Shadow Minister for Disabled People for very long. I think it's been 3 or 4 weeks, but at the moment it's hard to keep track in terms of time. And so I'm constantly learning. And I think it's really important to be there and be willing to listen and to learn. And if maybe I just touch on my first experience of ME, which was years and years ago. So before I was a Member of Parliament, I worked for a trade union, and I was representing a very young woman in the workplace who had ME, and there was no understanding whatsoever in terms of her condition. Why could she be quite healthy and come to work one day and then not be able to work the next day? She's just lazy, you know. And then when she was coming to work, this extra pressure that was put on her, and the feeling of being, you know, quite, you know, bullied and intimidated, and then that was exasperating her whole situation, and she was struggling and struggling, and in the end we just had to find a way of managing her out. I mean, now she's working another job where, you know, there's complete flexibility in terms of stuff, there's really, you know, good understanding, and she was very careful about what employer she wanted to work for because of the horrific experience that she went and had. And I have to say, when I first took her case, I had to look up and find out quite a bit of information. But the way that people can be treated, you know, within the workplace and within society, and the lack of understanding for me is one of the really big issues. And I know that you're doing a lot of work around trying to get extra funding in terms of research. And from my point, you know, whatever I can do to help raise those issues and champion your campaigns, I'm really keen to ensure that I do.
Thank you so much, Vicky, and thank you for joining us today. And we have a few questions coming in from people on Facebook. The first is, what is Labour doing medically, economically and socially for people with ME?
Well, I guess at the moment there's kind of several bits. You know, we've just come through a general election, even though it does still seem quite a bit of time ago. And so there's kind of, you know, part of what we need to do in terms of developing our stuff in relation to the next general election, our manifesto. And I wouldn't want to preempt everything that's in that. But then there is kind of, you know, stuff that we need to be doing, you know, right now, and particularly kind of with coronavirus. So we're really pushing in terms of these online food delivery slots. We think that, you know, this is really important. It's one of the largest concerns that I hear as an MP locally, but ever since I've taken over the role as Shadow Minister for Disabled People, to make sure that people have got access to that. And then there's the stuff to the DNR notices, the Do Not Resuscitate notices, and the kind of fear that people have had around that, and whether or not people have or haven't been issued with them, there is, you know, absolutely an absolute fear of that. So really making sure that, you know, we keep the pressure on so that nobody should be doing them. You know, government have gone and said that people shouldn't be doing them. The Care Quality Commission, the NHS, etc., have all gone and said that we shouldn't be doing them. And then it's about talking about things. So when we come out of coronavirus, you know, are there opportunities, very much in terms of what Catherine was saying, around, you know, readjusting how we are and how we go and access stuff, you know, in society. So previously people would have said, oh, it's too hard, too challenging to be able to work from home. Well, you know, part of that has to be gone in terms of the debate. We've gone and shown actually people can, you know, work from home. I wouldn't have thought that I could do my job, you know, from home. I'm doing it in, you know, very different ways and circumstances to how I ever did before. You know, in Parliament, the reason why I've got to leave at 5:45 is we're about to, for the first time ever in the history of Parliament, vote online. This has never happened before, and other people said this wasn't possible. So, you know, there's huge, you know, potential opportunities, as well as obviously, you know, still a huge amount of challenges and worries.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you, Denise, for asking that question. It's really, really good to hear from you, Vicky, and to have another MP on board and someone who does have sway in the shadow cabinet. So thank you so much for joining us. We're gonna keep going and head on to Hannah Sweeney Kyle next. Hannah is a young person with ME who has been fighting for access to education online long before the pandemic began, which chimes in with what Vicky has just spoken about in a way. She spoke at last year at Millions Missing Glasgow, and we're really grateful to have her here today, especially as her story has renewed poignancy given everything that's happened with education online in the past few months. So please take it away when you're ready, Hannah.
Sometimes you go into your settings and turn your microphone on your devices.
Hi, Hannah.
We can hear you. Go for it.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Hannah and I'm 16 years old. Last year I spoke at Millions Missing Glasgow about how I was treated by healthcare professionals, my education system and my experience with ME as a youngster, hoping that my words could help any youngster out there going through a similar situation to myself. I had to leave school around 3.5 years ago as I had very little support, and because this illness was seen as being lazy and not wanting to come to school, which wasn't the case. I was constantly being struck down by teachers as this illness was not understood, and I was seen as not wanting to learn. I was constantly explaining myself to teachers about why I needed to go to the nurse's room for a rest. It was physically exhausting having to explain myself every time. In one case, I was forced to change into my PE kit, and I wasn't participating because this was the rules. Just getting to class was hard enough, leading me to often breaking down in tears as nobody understood how I was feeling. I was struggling badly with mental health. I was constantly getting put down by peers and people around me with negative comments about ME. My health was getting worse, and as a direct effect of that, I had to leave school at age 14. I gradually got worse and was bedbound for more than 2 years. It was really tough as I saw my friends continue on at school doing things they loved, and I had to give up everything I once took for granted. The toughest part was giving up football, which I had played from a very young age. Going from playing football 7 days a week from just getting through the day was extremely difficult. Towards the start of 2019, when I was a little stronger, I decided to email Falkirk Council, Education Manager for School Services and Improvements, to see if somehow I could gain somewhat of my education back, whether that be home tutoring or online education. The communication between my school and the school improvement team was appalling, which made the progress a whole lot longer and more difficult as I was constantly emailing them for updates, and the progress of my education as a whole was never taken seriously enough, leading me to yet again feeling let down and disappointed. In May 2019, I was invited to talk with Falkirk Council's Education Manager for School Improvements, and a woman from Action for ME also came along to offer a training package that was used in other local authorities to help to give staff more awareness of this illness. The Education Manager claimed that Falkirk Council employees would benefit from such training. I also shared my experience of how I was treated in school with this illness. The Education Manager apologised on behalf of the Council and admitted that both the school and the Council had let me down in many ways, and promised me not only the opportunity to regain my education back, but also to speak at Falkirk Council's Head Teachers Conference, in the hope that my words and experience would give an insight in what I had experienced throughout my education and the impact this has had on all aspects of my life. Throughout this meeting, the constant apologies and disbelief at the way I had been treated, which was obviously a shock to her, led me to believe that the meeting was successful. I planned and organised it all, and with the help with Action for ME, offered a package that could help Falkirk Council potentially help kids in the future so their education wouldn't be missed and staff would be more trained and supported with pupils with ME. Looking back now, I feel it was just a tick box exercise and that it was just to make themselves look good. At the end of May 2019, I was given amazing news. After all the emailing and reaching out, I thought they finally listened to me, and that although they had let me down before, they were going to show me that I would rightfully get my education back, that this shouldn't have happened in the first place, and a support system for youngsters with illnesses like ME should be taken seriously. I would have been doing maths and English, which I was over the moon about, hoping that that was the start of me getting qualifications. All of this work would have been done online through an online learning site called Scholar, with one-to-one support with tutors. It took a further 4 months to get a full account up and running, as yet again communication between the school and Falkirk Council was shocking, which led to me constantly emailing and checking on progress of my online learning. I went out and bought jotters and pencils with the thought of all of this coming true, ready to go, checking my emails every day, even sharing it on my social media page, where I share my journey with ME. ME Action also shared it on their social media page, thinking it was true. Sadly, it was too good to be true. I was expected to learn everything by myself with no help whatsoever. I wasn't supplied with any device to do my work on. They said that they didn't have such things to hand out, putting me already at a disadvantage. There was no tutoring, it was just pages of stuff to learn. As many of you know, memory and concentration is a part of ME, which made it impossible for me to do without support to help me learn and give me hope to one day sit my exams. It wasn't suited or tailored to my needs, which should have been the number one thought in all of this. To this day, I've never had any contact from my school or the council to see how I'm doing. All children should feel supported and trusting of their education system. A child shouldn't need to worry about losing their education because of their health. Unfortunately, I can't say the same, as this wasn't just the first or second time I had been let down. It was my third. I had lost all faith in the education system and Falkirk Council. I had to make the difficult decision to stop fighting for my education, as that was never taken seriously enough from day one. And I was never getting any nearer to getting my rightful education back. It was beginning to affect my mental health negatively, leading me to go into a really dark phase of my life, as I lost all hope in the future. I can now happily say I'm mentally stronger than I have ever been before, thanks to my two amazing mums who have helped me from the very beginning and constantly do every day. Now in such a devastating time, schools all around the world are closed, which has led children to having to get homeschooled. I think now schools don't have an excuse not to provide kids with illnesses like ME an opportunity to get their education back. There is clear evidence that online learning does work and is suitable for us to use, meaning that every child, no matter their circumstances, has an equal chance. Thanks everyone for listening, and I hope everyone is.
Thank you so much, Hannah. No, that's fine. Thank you so much for speaking to us. I can see from the faces around that people are feeling as emotional as I am about what you said there. It was amazing to hear your story. It was brilliant to meet you last year and your mums at Glasgow Millions Missing, and we're really pleased to have you as part of our community, and we're going to keep fighting alongside you.
Thanks for letting me share my story.
Thank you so much. Take care, Hannah. So next we're going to hear from Dr. Nina Muirhead, a dermatology surgeon who lives with ME and has spoken a lot about the medical profession's lack of understanding of the disease. Nina is speaking with Emma Shorter, who's a patient advocate who helped create ME Action Scotland and has petitioned the Scottish Government to review treatment of people with ME. Welcome, Nina and Emma.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Hi, welcome to Millions Missing 2020. So as Karima said, you're a doctor. Your work focuses on education healthcare professionals about ME, and you've just released a module. Before we discuss the module, could you tell us a little bit about your personal and professional experience of ME?
So Hannah's talk just now was extremely moving for me. I got ill 3.5 years ago, and I was severely unwell for 18 months and have very slowly started to get back to work with my job, which is in dermatology for the NHS. My professional experience of ME was almost non-existent before I became ill myself. Most hospital doctors don't know what ME is at all. They can't recognise it. There isn't a pattern of typical symptoms that they are taught. However, once I started to learn about it, I started to recognise other patients who were coming with other skin problems who had ME. And as soon as I understood the illness, I could learn how to diagnose it. And I thought, why aren't doctors being taught about this from the start at medical school? And that is how I've got to where I am today.
That's really interesting. So you used that experience to educate healthcare professionals and create this new module, which was launched on Monday. Could you tell us a little bit about that module?
Yes, so this is just the start. It's a small 10-question, each is based on a case which has been inspired by stories that I have heard from other patients, each modified slightly just to make it a little bit more generic, but very much on the severity of the illness and the multiple symptoms that each patient does experience. And the idea is to introduce some of the basic things like diagnostic criteria, a few things about early and accurate diagnosis, pacing being an excellent way of starting to self-manage, and also empathy and the severe impact that this illness has on not only the patient but also their family quality of life, and how important it is to really understand and believe in the patient, and how the exercise can make the illness worse.
I love that you're really centering the patient voice in your work, because it's something that's been missing and is so important. Can you tell us how this module can be accessed? And is there anything the ME community can do to support its release?
Yes, so it's accessible online. I've run the module with an established company called Study PRN, which means study as and when needed. They have 30,000 members already signed up, so they've emailed out to their current education members. But if you want to recommend to your GP to go online, they can register or log in quite easily, and there's a whole module called MECFS. This is a level 7 module, which means that it's a postgraduate level, and the continued professional development points are given, and there's a certificate at the end. So the Twitter handle is Diploma MSc, and I think we're going to put that on the website, or a link to that as well. The best thing about it is it's an introduction, it's a start. I'm really welcoming feedback from patients and from doctors. It's been a collaborative effort to make this module in the first place. I've had international experts from around the world, New Zealand, Canada, America, Australia, all contributing, GPs locally, patients, experts, and I think it's been incredibly important to get all those perspectives, particularly the severe end of the ME spectrum as well. So I've tried to represent everyone while still maintaining a level of professionalism, and all the publications that are quoted are sort of peer-reviewed, and there are some resources there as well.
Okay, brilliant. I'm sure we'll have the link on the website and social media. And yeah, you talked a little bit about graded exercise therapy and the importance of resting. Can you tell us a bit about why graded exercise therapy could be harmful with people with ME?
So ME is unlike any other illness or even deconditions, so people who don't normally exercise, or ill people who have fatigue symptoms. They can all repeat their exercise tests the next day. So whatever their body's physiology can do for making energy at a cellular level, that can be repeated. Whereas in ME, that aerobic energy delivery system is broken. So people with ME reach their anaerobic threshold much quicker. They build up lactate, and their ability to exercise is reduced on the next day. And that is a huge paradigm shift compared to any other illness physiology. It's completely different. So ME patients, if they exercise repeatedly, they get less fit. And that has consequences in terms of possibly neuroinflammation. Patients certainly experience this sort of brain fog after they've exercised, a worsening of symptoms, and that includes not just fatigue and muscle pain, but sore throats, headaches, inability to concentrate. So it's a multi-system malaise that is triggered by exercise. And because that is the one thing that sort of is the key diagnostic feature of the illness, it's definitely the wrong thing to be advising in terms of treatment.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I wish there'd been that sort of advice when I got recommended graded exercise therapy. So very excited about the module. do you have any advice for people experiencing post-viral fatigue or in the early stages of ME?
So if you're feeling post-viral or tired or sore throats, a bit like you're sort of coming down with the flu, then it's important to rest and pace, not to push yourself, not to force yourself to go to work, not to exercise every day without giving yourself time to find out if that has had consequences. And sometimes it's up to 4 days afterwards that it really hits you, and you wake up and you're almost paralyzed. And if you're doing activities and exercise every day, how do you know which thing triggered it this time? So you really need to drop back, stay well within your energy capabilities, probably do half of what you think you can do, and then you can work out how your body is functioning and how to really listen to yourself and be kind to yourself.
Brilliant. That sounds like really good advice. And luckily this is being recorded, so we can direct people to this, new people to join our community, to this video. A last question. What is your vision for the future in terms of the treatment that people with ME receive?
I have big goals for this illness. I want there to be a biomarker, a treatment, a way of monitoring it day to day, whether it's a breath test or a urine dip or a finger prick. We need to know when we're having good days, when we're having bad days, how we can modify this with medication. We need better, more specific targeted drugs, and we need to know a prognosis, and we need better support, whether it's working from home, getting education from home, and really sort of a general understanding from all health and social care professionals and the community at large. And that's what I see as the future.
That sounds like a great future. I think that's our last question, but I just want to mention the GP module again. We'll hopefully have it on social media or the website in the next couple of days. And it's something that people can email to their GPs and help educate them. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really interesting to hear about your work. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, and good luck with the new module.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you both so much. Yeah, that was fascinating. And yeah, I second that, that I hope that is our vision for the future. I hope that is our future. So next up, we've got Ellie Rushton, who is an ally to people with ME and has been doing amazing things to fundraise for ME Action. And we've got Esbe interviewing her today. I think they'll explain more about what's been going on. So thank you both for joining us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sean, and hi, Ellie. Thank you so much for joining. So, for anyone that doesn't know Ellie is an amazing ally. She's recently done an amazing fundraiser for ME Action UK, and we're speaking to her today, so she can let us know how she became an ally and how did everything go during her 6 months fundraiser, doing 100 reps a day. That is like, yeah, amazing, Ellie. So, Ellie, how did you learn first about ME and why you became an ally?
So about 5 years ago, I met my partner's sister, and that was just before, I think it was just before her diagnosis. So it was a sort of, I met her, and then pretty much from the point that I met her, kind of saw the impact of ME and what kind of lifestyle changes she had to make because of her ME. And, really without Hattie, without knowing Hattie, I probably still wouldn't know what ME was, as is probably the case for a lot of people. They only know about it if they have it or if they know someone who has it. And so I wanted to do something that would maybe help some more people know about it, rather than just people, closer to the community.
That's amazing, Ellie. And throughout all that process, what has being an ally meant to you in terms of fighting for people with ME? Like, I know that you were motivated to do your fundraiser and everything else. And so, what has that meant to you personally in terms of helping others, really?
Well, I think that what was really important for me was, the reason I did this specific fundraiser of doing 100 bodyweight reps a day was it was to use my body to do something that I knew that people with ME couldn't use their body to do, if that makes sense. So, I think the Millions Missing slogan has really had an effect on me, so well done. Because when I first saw, I went into an event in Birmingham and saw all the shoes laid out and saw how many people wanted to be there who couldn't be there. And I think when you're an ally, you need to be willing to put the physical effort in that people with ME don't have the physical capacity to put in. So that was part of it, was putting in that physical effort. And then also, I think when you're an ally to any cause, it's really important to make sure that you're not speaking for people, but you're helping people get their voices heard.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that you did very well, because apart from the fundraiser, you had a Medium blog, you had an Instagram, you had lots of things, and you were asking feedback from people, sort of like, what does it mean for you to do this or that or whatever. So in that sense, how did people respond to that when you explained all these things?
Yeah, it was a bit of sort of figuring out what would work at first, because I think at first I'd ask for people to sort of send in their stories, but obviously it takes quite a lot of effort to sit down and write out your whole story, right? So something that worked a bit better was using Instagram, using Facebook to ask just very specific questions. I think maybe one of the first ones I asked was, what does it mean to you to listen to your body? Because obviously that was something I was having to do with this exercise regime, so what does it mean to you to listen to your body? And then I got lots and lots of different responses, and I was able to put all of those sort of shorter responses into a long form thing, and again hopefully help some people to see and hear from people with ME when they wouldn't usually have had the chance to.
Definitely, and that's such a huge part of being an ally, sort of like going beyond the community and letting people know what ME is and what can they do. And finally, Ellie, just to wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say to allies to encourage them to support people with ME and to support the cause, really?
I think get creative and have a bit of fun if you can. I wanted to do, part of the reason I did a fitness thing was, all the reasons I said earlier, but also because it was something I would enjoy and would be able to do for 6 months, and there's lots of different things you can do. I'm also a performance poet, and I went to a few poetry nights and performed some poems written by people with ME. That's another really creative way to get people's voices out there. So yeah, get creative and have fun, because if an ally can do a fitness based fundraiser, then you can do any fundraiser.
Oh, that's amazing, Ellie. Thank you so much, and I hope that all our allies are listening. And yeah, if they want to get in touch with you with on any other creative ideas, they can do through your Instagram or any other ways. So thank you so much, Ellie, for being here. Back to you, Sean and Karima.
Bye. Thanks so much, Ellie. That's amazing. Yeah, just to echo Espe there, it's so important for us to have allies as part of our community, and it means so much to us. So thank you to you and to Hattie as well for bringing you into our world. We've loved hearing about all the great things that you're doing.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Professor Chris Ponting, Chair of Medical Bioinformatics at Edinburgh University. I'm hoping I said that right. Chris has been an incredible ally for ME Action Scotland. He's supported our petition to the Scottish Parliament in 2018. He spoke at Millions Missing Glasgow last year, and he's taken part in the film that we showed you earlier this year. Janet Sylvester from ME Action Scotland will be interviewing Chris today, and Janet's been involved in ME Action Scotland since the beginning and helped organise our Millions Missing Scotland events. Thank you, and over to you guys.
Hi, thanks Karima. I'm delighted to be talking to Chris Ponting today, and And Chris, thank you so much for supporting Millions Missing, not just today, but in previous years up in Scotland. I'll just dive in with the first questions. So first of all, Chris, how did you first become involved with research into ME?
I've got a good friend, Simon McGrath, whose health and hopes have been devastated by ME. Many years I didn't think that the science that I was doing was relevant to ME research, but technology has changed and there came a time when it was relevant, and so I decided to get involved.
Well, thank you, and it's clearly very good for the community that you have become involved. As you're aware, one of the key issues for us today is the potential increase in ME that several articles have highlighted following COVID-19. I wondered what your thoughts were on this.
Well, I've begun to read up on past evidence and looked at a study in Australia called the Dubbo study that looked at the health of about 250 people for a year after they had viral and non-viral infections. And 10% of these people had disabling fatigue and pain over 6 months after their infection, and their symptoms were similar to those of ME. So that, and we know that infections with SARS or COVID-19 coronaviruses already have been linked to ME-like symptoms. And in one study, about a quarter of SARS survivors from hospitals met the case definition for ME. So it does appear as though it is feasible that 10% of people with severe COVID-19 infection will unfortunately become unwell with ME-like symptoms.
Wow, that's clearly a really major concern. What would you like to see the government doing? What sort of action could they be taking?
So there are huge opportunities now. What I think is needed is that long-term outcomes of COVID-19 patients need to be monitored. And we need to separate those who have post-viral fatigue that resolves into ME from those who have other morbidities. I mean, I hope that large wave of new diagnoses of ME does not occur, but as a country, we do need to be alert to this as a strong possibility.
Yeah, and do you think this type of monitoring that you've just talked about, could this be helpful in our wider understanding of post-viral illness, including ME?
Yes, absolutely. And scientists often study infection and the body's response to infection initially, but scientists rarely study how, for some people, recovery never happens. Those studies are difficult and they require observations over long periods of time for many people. But I think the political and scientific imperative is absolutely there.
And I certainly hope the government will provide funding for this type of study. Thinking of the longer term need for ME research, what sort of research do you think is needed?
Mostly objective science, the type of science that studies ME without being diverted by previous findings. Of course, this is the good way of doing science, particularly when, as with ME, most previous observations have not proved to be replicated. Now, I'm a geneticist, so I would say this. Genetics is the archetypal objective science. We try to find DNA differences between people that help to explain their risk of ME. Now, this won't necessarily give us a complete story of why some people never fully recover from viruses, but it would give us an unprejudiced view of what causes ME, rather than what happens after people get
ME. And I really hope that type of research gets funding, as it makes such a difference, clearly. In an ideal world, if money was no object, what ME research would you personally like to carry out?
So I would love to do a vast genetic study on ME to bring together a large number of people from the ME community and do something called a GWAS, a genome-wide association study. We'd compare the DNA of all these people with ME against the DNA of hundreds of thousands of people who don't have ME, and see what are the differences, the DNA differences that predict the risk of people having ME. Now, This is a project that, together with charities and London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, we have applied for funding, but we don't have the final response from funders about our application. When we know, we'll let everyone else know.
Right, that's very exciting, and I'm sure everyone here will wish you very well with your application. Do you have any idea when you might hear about it?
Literally, I check my emails every hour to see whether it's come in. Once it has come in, then we'll organise what we're going to say and then tell everyone.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. And could you tell us anything about the research that you're doing into COVID-19 at the moment?
Yeah, so I am trying to help others to do the best kind of research and hooking up people who are both in intensive care units to those who have genetics expertise. What the great thing is at the moment that's happening in science is that people from very many different walks of science are coming together and pulling in the same direction to have really excellent outcomes. The amount of science that's going on and the speed in which it's been prosecuted are outstanding. And it's across the world and internationally. There are no holds barred.
Well, that's amazing, and thank you so much for doing that, because I think that's fantastic. And finally, do you have a message for the ME community?
Yeah, so I think a new wave of ME research is coming with new ideas, new scientists, new technologies. And this new wave will create new data and it'll provide new hypotheses. But don't be prepared for us as scientists to agree about everything. A robust argument is part and parcel of what we do, of the scientific process. And coming together and agreeing on a consensus will sometimes need us as scientists and people with ME to change your minds and sacrificing sacred cows, as it were. So the best thing that science can do is to provide the latest evidence from us in a comprehensible and transparent way, but for people with ME to be absolutely involved at the heart of it. It's going to be an interesting, and I think it's going to be a transformative next few years.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I hope you're right, and I think that the GWAS study application showed that there was a huge interest from people with ME in taking part in research. So that continues. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing to develop research into ME, and for your support for us today and on the video. Back to Sian to find out about the next speaker. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. I'm jumping in. Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, we share your dream, and we really hope that we can see you pull off that study and that becomes a reality for us all. We really appreciate your huge support for the community over the years. So coming towards the end of our event today, we are joined by Dr. Anna Ruddock. Anna is a medical anthropologist, writer and disability activist. As we heard some from Catherine Hale earlier, she's on the advisory group of the Chronic Illness Inclusion Project and is co-author of the recently launched report. And I'm going to let her tell you more about the wonderful things that she's done, and as a patient herself and a huge ally to the community. Espe's joining her, so welcome to you both.
Hello, Anna. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
It's amazing. Anna, I think that Karima has done a brilliant intro of your work. And my first question, I guess, would be that obviously the world that we're living in right now is vastly different from the world that we were living in 3 months ago. And I wanted to hear from you, as a person with ME, how has COVID-19 affected you personally and maybe professionally even?
Yeah, thanks for the small question, Espe.
You're welcome.
In my 5 minutes. I think, also I should apologise, my Millions Missing t-shirt got lost somewhere in my pre-lockdown move, so I'm on rest today. How has it affected me? I think in multiple ways, honestly, like with all of us. I think what perhaps has most registered with me is the emotional impact of it, and how it has brought home to me once again just how insecure and how precarious life is as a person in the world with ME, frankly. I feel quite ambivalent in some ways about this increased visibility of our disease all of a sudden. I think in some ways it offers a lot of hope, and visibility is always good. And there are also moments where I find that it triggers a lot of anxiety in me to suddenly see this talk about ME everywhere, and some old names popping up that, you know, we don't have the most positive memories of. And one of the, I suppose in a strange way, the opportunities though that it's given rise to is to put some of my research skills to use. So working with Catherine and my partner Anna, we ran a survey in response to the call by the Women and Equalities Committee. They're doing an inquiry into the impact of COVID-19 on people with protected characteristics. So we wanted to do an evidence submission around the impact on people with chronic illness. So we ran a survey it was open for a week or so in April, and thank you to anyone here who responded, because a lot of the respondents have ME. And one of the people who responded to that used this phrase, and she said that she felt both co-opted and erased at the moment. And I thought that was just a beautiful way to put it. That in some ways we're seeing stories of our lives in the media in ways that perhaps with a frequency that we haven't seen before, in terms of knowing what isolation means, understanding what true fatigue is. And on the other hand, we're being invisibilized by policy and on lists of who is at risk, and people are falling through gaps, and people are hungry because they can't get their deliveries from the supermarkets. So I feel very mixed about it. I feel quite ambivalent about where we are, recognizing that there's hope, and also having moments of sadness that it reveals, you know, how tough things are.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And yeah, I feel that as well. And actually, you've covered already the question that I had next, which was like, how would you think this whole pandemic might actually affect the whole community and the chronic illness community and everyone else. So thank you for that. I think it's incredibly important that we all come together as a community and we help each other. And thank you so much for all the work that you, Catherine, and the project are doing. And on a personal note, Anna, I would like to ask you, how did you become involved in advocacy, activism, and research projects, really? Because at the end of the day, it's such a huge task to do. And I will feel that anyone watching right now will love to know why you did that, and how you would encourage anyone to actually go into that.
Sure. So I think, so I've had ME for 24 years. I got sick when I was 15. And what's interesting about that is that it was just pre-digital life, essentially. So my first kind of experiences of ME community and advocacy were on paper, with newsletters and, you know, pen pals and writing letters. And I think, honestly, I haven't been the most consistent activist, I would say. I've had phases where I've been a lot more active than others. And that's been for different reasons. There have been times, especially when I was younger and I suddenly got much better, that I just wanted to be out in the world. And so I went out into the world for a while. And then, you know, later on, and as I've got older, the political dimension of all of this has become a lot more important to me. And I think also for me personally, and partly this is what being involved with the Chronic Illness Inclusion Project has been so important for me, is in recognizing just how much oppression I have internalized. having essentially come of age as a woman with a disease that is persistently invalidated. And therefore my experience of being in the world has been invalidated since I was a child, essentially. And I think for me, getting to a point where I fully understand just how much this disease informs my existence, the advocacy and the activism becomes more important, and in some ways it becomes less of a choice. It feels more of a compulsion, I think. But I would say that a lot of the motivation and the inspiration from it and the courage to do it comes from the community, because there are definitely times when I don't feel like sticking my head above the parapet at all. I think we do it because we see each other doing it, and without those examples, I certainly wouldn't be able.
All right, thank you, Anna. And I think that's it from us. I'm not sure if Hannah is still with us at this time, but back to you, Sean and Karina.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anna.
I know that was really, fascinating, and I think so many of us could recognise, much of what you said in ourselves, especially around activism, and I think it's so important that yes, we do get involved, but we also take the time that we need when we are not in a space to do that, and balance that for our own health. Lastly, but definitely not least, we're going to hear from Dionne Joseph, whose daughter Gigi has severe ME. Dionne has done an incredible job of raising awareness about treatment by speaking about Gigi's treatment in hospital, and we've got Denise coming back here to speak to Dionne, so thank you both.
Hello. Hi there. Hello. Very nice to speak with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi. Hello, Dionne. Lovely to see you again.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us for Williams Missing.
I'm very well. I'm glad to be here to share Jesus' experience and mine as well.
Well, many of us have followed your story, but for those who haven't, could you tell us a little bit about your experiences?
Okay, Gigi became ill about 2 years ago. We had been living in the Middle East, and we would come back in October of 2017, and December 2017, Gigi got ill. And I'll always remember when she got ill, because she went to a New Year's party and she came back before midnight. She didn't stay, for 2018, and she just said, "Mum, I'm feeling tired." Sorry, can you boys be quiet, please? Sorry, my voice. And from there onwards, it was a progressive loss of function, starting with just feeling tired, not being able to come downstairs. I'm sitting in her room now. She had a bunk bed. I'm sitting under her double bed, and she wasn't able to climb up, so we had to borrow a day bed. So it was a gradual loss of function and interaction with the family and daily life within the family. It took nearly a year for us to get help from Lewisham, the hospital. We just kept going backwards and forwards, and they kept telling me that Gigi had psychological problems and she needed to see a psychiatrist and psychologist. And I would say, look, I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been dealing with children who've got anxiety and withdrawal and depression for 25 years. This is not it. And they wouldn't listen to us until we had to eventually go privately. And by the time Jahan did come into the remit of the NHS, she was described to us as being close to death. And we then thought we were going to start getting help. And I didn't then realize that it was the beginning of an absolute nightmare when we became formally involved with services, because we weren't believed. And Gigi was, I would say, almost tortured in Lewisham Hospital, by being made to do exercises and sit up, take her mask off. They insisted she had a psychological problem. And it was only with the input of our MP, Janet Davey, MP for Lewisham, who eventually got involved and was able to get this off our backs. We were threatened with psychiatric admission, being taken to court. I'm a clinical psychologist, my husband is a barrister, and we still got an appalling level of treatment from our local health authority. It was terrible, absolutely terrible.
I think, unfortunately, your experience is shared by many of people trying to look after severely ill children with ME. They often end up accused of abusing them, basically.
We were told we were part of the problem.
Yeah.
Or we were the cause of the problem.
I know that is horrifically familiar, I'm afraid, to lots of people. How is Gigi now?
Well, Gigi's home now, having spent nearly a year in Lewisham Hospital. She's home. She is slowly recovering, but it's going to be a very long journey. She's able to communicate now through her text-to-speech app. So physically she's getting better, but she's also, I think, almost wanting it to happen very quickly, and is becoming discouraged by the slowness of her recovery. But she's here with us at home, which is enormously helpful.
That must have been such a relief to get her out of hospital. And you say Gigi can share a message. Is there anything you think you'd like to share with us now?
I think Gigi wants me to say thank you to the ME community. She calls everybody her sleepy sisters. People like yourself, Denise, who came to the hospital to see her. And we've had support from so many people. And I think she just wants to say thank you. I am without a shadow of a doubt that had I not had the knowledge and support of the ME community, Gigi would have died. She was that ill. She was close to death. You know, so I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but she would have died without the support of the ME community. Absolutely, definitely.
I'm so
glad. Can I mention the name here? Tina Rodwell was absolutely wonderful. I say she's Gigi's second mum now, because she would be dead. Gigi would be dead without her. And William Ware, Dr. Spate, Dr. Nina, everybody helped us. And of course, my MP as well.
Well, I mean, that is really, really nice. Good to hear that you did get some support in a really harrowing time. And going back, if you, so one thing you would want healthcare professionals to be taught, to be educated about ME, what would it be?
Do you know, I think of this often, and I think of my own clinical training, you know, some time ago. And had I not been directly involved with Gigi as a clinical psychologist, I wouldn't have believed that this is a real thing. You know, so I'm seeing it from 2 points of view. I would not have believed it unless I directly experienced it. So I would say for doctors and psychologists, because we are part of the problem, my profession is part of the problem. I would say at the very least to try and meet a parent of a child with ME, or a person with ME, or somebody with ME, or watch the video Voices from the Shadows. I think when my social worker saw that, I think that's when the penny finally dropped as to how dangerously ill Gigi was, what could have happened, and that we were not making it up. You know, at the very least, put some training in that. I saw Nina talking earlier about the module she's put together. I'd be happy to do some input there from my professional point as a clinical psychologist, because we are part of the problem. Because people, it's not seen as a physiological illness. It's seen as a mental, psychological illness.
So until we train the medical profession, this will keep on happening. Children will keep being abused. I mean, not out of malice, I'm sure, just because they don't believe it's a real illness.
That's right, and the nurses as well. I mean, when Gigi was in hospital, a number of the nurses had just finished their training, they'd just come through, and they'd never heard of ME. These were newly qualified nurses. They'd never heard of it. They didn't know what it was. Never heard of it, and they were currently doing their training. So it's the doctors and all the ancillary, you know, the associated professions as well.
And I know we often focus rightly on the person with the illness, but this must have been beyond difficult for you. Would you like to share, you know, how it's been?
It's been immensely difficult to have somebody with a severe illness, and I've had to go back into the role of a carer. You know, I've had to sort of get up at nights and look after a child, and I thought I'd finished all of that decades ago. I'm wearing a turban because my hair has fallen out just from the stress of it. You know, and it's been really difficult. But again, as with Gigi, I have been so supported by the ME communities, my ME sisters, I call them, other moms, people like yourself, Denise, other parents, that I can just get onto the Facebook group and say, look, I'm having a really hard time. So that's been wonderful. And Espe as well always checks in and seeing how Gigi is.
And if there's any advice for other carers of severely ill?
I would say two things. Don't be hard on yourself, because, you know, unless you go into the caring professions, to suddenly have to take on that role as a carer, if you're not trained for it, it's immensely difficult. I would also say to seek any therapy that's going, because it disrupts the whole family functioning. We've had family therapy, which has been very, very helpful. Even as a psychologist myself, I wasn't keen on going into the therapy, but it's been really, really helpful. And finally, I would say, you know, you know, if your MP is there, try and get your MP involved. You get somebody external to help you, because it's a battle that you almost cannot fight. I didn't realise how monolithic and intractable the NHS could be until I was up against them. And I could not have done it without support of an ME community and other professionals as well. It's an impenetrable wall to breach. That sort of the wall of disbelief and suspicion that the NHS puts up.
I mean, that is, you know, horrendous to hear, obviously. And I mean, you have done an amazing job looking after Gigi and getting her home, and I'm so glad to hear she's a little bit better. And I hope she fulfills her dream of becoming an author. I know she's been writing in her head all the time she was ill, which is amazing.
That's right. She's doing her blog.
She's doing her blog.
Yeah,
Gigi thinks Alexia. So thank you so much, Dionne, for coming and being part of Millions Missing. And I'm sure everybody out here and all of us wish the very best for you, Gigi, and your family.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Denise. Thank you, everybody. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Dionne. Thank you for joining us. I mean, well, it's hard to put into words how much it means to us to hear such honesty and bravery of sharing yours and Gigi's story with us. We are delighted that she's at home with you, and wish lots of love and solidarity to her and to all of you. The community is delighted to be sleepy sisters, sleepy second mums, whatever your family need and we can be. And I think it really gives us that, reminds us of the urgency that we're faced with, that a lot of Millions Missing is a wonderful celebration, and we are all here to connect with each other and spend time together. But, you know, the root of it is that we need change, and we need it urgently now. And Gigi's situation is obviously a huge indicator of that. So thank you for sharing with us. So, and thanks to everyone. That's it. We are wrapping up. It's been wonderful to bring together so many people, all working towards a better future for people with ME. There is so much here and so much love and care, and it's been really wonderful to hear from so many of you. And special thanks to our social media team, Carly Hearn, Susan Colt, Charlie Wainwright, who have been rapidly scurrying away in the background while we've been changing plans. All the other team members who have made this happen as well.
Absolutely. A few things coming up that we'd like to make you aware of tomorrow. So Wednesday at 8 p.m. is ME Awareness Hour on Twitter. So join in to get this hashtag trending. It's hashtag ME Awareness Hour. It happens every Wednesday, but there's going to be a big push this week. So get involved in that. On Thursday, the 14th, there's going to be a global virtual icebreaker. Consider it a sort of post-Millions Missing community celebration. It's a really great chance to make new connections within our community and have short one-to-one conversations with people. So head over to meaction.net/event to find more details of this. I'd like to do a little plug for Sheffield ME and Fibromyalgia Group, who are running a virtual festival with many musicians on the evening of Friday the 15th. Go find them on Facebook as a way to wind down a bit after such an intense week. And back to you, Karima.
Yeah, it's definitely a highlight of the year, but a very intense one. So this has just been truly brilliant. Thank you again, everyone. Such a wonderful collaborative effort that couldn't have happened without so many of you giving up your time and energy, and we know that. So
can I just button once more to say that Jamie McCall of Bombay Bicycle Club has just shared our video, so thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. So, and I think it's Ben with the controls. If you could switch us over to gallery view, we'd just like to give a big wave from everyone here, everyone who's been sitting behind listening and doing interviews. Thank you so much. Is this working?
Ben?